coming to our second Alumni Spotlight. My name is Amy Liu, and I am the Director of Alumni Affairs. Today, I also have our P1 liaison with us, Alexa.
Hello, everyone.
And then I also have a very special guest, Dr. Albert May. He is the Senior Clinical Consultant for Cigna Express Scripts. So if you want, you could just introduce yourself really fast.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name's Albert. As Amy just mentioned, I'm a Senior Clinical Consultant for Express Scripts. I work with Medicare health plans in the account team space. So really, you can kind of say I'm a salesperson, but my main job is to help my clients manage their formularies, their clinical trend, and then internally I work with our sales team to try and upsell some of our programs and get Express Scripts a couple of sales.
Cool. So what's like the most challenging part of your job?
Well, the thing about my job is I think you'll hear this often in a lot of different corporate roles, but every day is a different day. But if I kind of break out my job into three different parts, it would be, I would say 50% would be more clinical based. So I'm looking at rebates, I'm looking at drug management, drug trend management. I'm looking at different clinical items like what drug is the best drug to be used for this indication that's also the most cost effective. But that also works based on my client's patient population. So that's about 50% of my job. The other 50% I would say is sales. And, I think there's a stereotype that pharmacists aren't really good at sales. I think that's all wrong. I think that's kind of baloney. The only thing I've had to learn to be good at sales is how to talk to people. So if you know how to talk to people, no matter what you have heard about sales, I think you can do it. It's a very, very interesting, very dynamic field. And if it's something that interests you, definitely there's an avenue for you to go into sales through the managed care route. But I would say learning sales might be considered the toughest thing about moving into the kind of position that I'm in.
Got it. Did you have to take like a separate course for sales, or did you just learn through the experience as you worked?
I learned on the fly. I was thrown, when I first started with the company, I was put onto a client call I think like my third week starting here. And they just said, all right, Albert, sounds like you know how to talk to people. Go for it. Okay. So, there's, not to scare people, but, there's certain things about my role, I think that many people would expect you come into the role kind of just knowing how to do it. How do you talk to people, right? Like there's probably things that you can teach associated with that, but a lot of it, I think, as you said, Amy, is experience. It's having a natural sense of how to respond to people's questions, how to kind of probe them, how to challenge them with challenging questions, how to get them to open up to you. That isn't necessarily something that you can study in a course, I don't think. As far as sales tactics, yeah, there's plenty of training sessions that they can do within any company to teach you how to have different sales tactics. When's the best time to talk to your client? What should you talk to your client about? What kind of research should you do before you go talk to your client? All of those things, they can be done as part of on-the-job training.
Got it. I see.
But to answer your question, I did not do a specific course. I am a PharmD, and that is all I am. So not that should be discounted anyway, but.
Okay. So you didn't need an MBA.
No, but there are pharmacists that I do have colleagues that are MBAs, so it's not a bad thing to have one of those. I know a couple of my friends are also masters in public health, MPH. It's always not a bad. It's never a bad idea to get additional degrees, additional education. Kind of depends on what you want to do in the future and where you want to go with it.
I see. So you previously went into like a brief overview of what your day was like. Can you go into a little bit more detail about like your meetings, or like what time you start, what time you end?
What time I start, what time I end. Well, that's, I have a lot of flexibility in my role. So my role is 100% work from home. And as you might expect during COVID times, there's not a lot of travel. Well, there's no travel, I would say. So I don't have to go see my clients. So that's nice. So it's essentially a work from home job and I don't need to travel anywhere. In a typical year though, where we don't have a pandemic running, I would say I travel about once a month to my clients, or travel once a month to whatever internal organization or enterprise level training or get together that the company wants to do. As far as my day-to-day while I'm working from home, again, I would say most of my time is kind of spent doing either clinical items or working on strategical items, where I would kind of bucket that sales mentality under. So let's talk about, I guess I'll talk about both of those. The sales part. Half of the job is just figuring out what your client needs, what is appropriate to try and sell them. You can't sell everything. Your client's not going to want to hear everything, and they don't have time to hear everything either. So you need to get the most important and most impactful programs or opportunities in front of them. So I would say 50% of sales isn't even with the clients, with your own product teams and your own internal partners, your legal teams, to try and figure out what should you even try to sell. And then the other half of it is, okay, now you get in front of your client, you make your pitch, you answer their questions. I work with health plans. Health plans are very savvy. They know the marketplace sometimes better than the PBM does. They know their patients for sure better than the PBM does. So a lot of the work I do with my clients is to customize programs, offer them enhancements to programs that aren't a part of like a standard package, if you will, and do whatever we can to meet their needs before we try to get that sale. On the other side, from a formulary clinical management kind of perspective, anything that the client wants to do, I'm pretty much, from a clinical perspective, I would say PBMs, we're really there for a couple purposes. We adjudicate claims, we help maintain formularies, we drive rebates, and we drive networks. So I'm really kind of in charge of like the clinical formulary management and the rebate piece of things. And any question my client has or any change my client wants to make generally will come through me first. And then from me, I liaise and work with all of our internal partners that are experts in each of those areas to get those projects done or figure out what we can do. I'm very heavily involved in operations. So operations would be, hey, this is what we want to do. Here's the strategic vision for what we want to do. Now, make it happen in the computer, make it happen in the system. So that's operations. And it's very hard too. A lot of people, they get stuck on the, okay, what can we do? What do we want to do? But then how do we do it? Can we do it? Gets lost until you actually start talking about some of those things. So that would be where I would say I spend a lot of my time, operations and then strategy.
Okay, that's really interesting. So how did you decide that you wanted to go into this field or this area of pharmacy?
Yeah, so, I think a lot of us would kind of categorize these kinds of roles or even these kinds of companies under managed care overall. So I think I explained to you guys in my initial response, but I knew I worked as a pharmacy technician before I started pharmacy school, and I think I did it for a year, and I was like, this isn't for me. I don't think I could do this long term. Back in college, I was really good at chemistry. I was a science nerd. I was like, I want to do something with chemistry, and so a couple of people that I knew, they were like, well, chemistry, you can be involved in drug research, drug development, you can go work for big pharma. And I was like, whoa, cool, let's take a look at that. And really the best route that I could think of that kind of involved healthcare and pharma, rather than like pharma and sales, but like healthcare and pharma, science background, that was pharmacy. So I joined our pre-pharmacy club at my undergraduate university, really got involved, but I knew, again, that I did not want to be a pharmacy I did not want to be a pharmacist working in retail. I wasn't sure yet about hospital, but I knew I wasn't going to do retail. So the first part of what I did before I applied was just look into what else is out there. And I mean, just a quick Google search, you can find so many different positions, government, nuclear pharmacy, you can find like various, FDA has pharmacy positions. Obviously I mentioned big pharma, they have positions. And then I found out about managed care, and I was like, managed care, that deals with, it looks like it deals with finance, insurance, and it looks like it's really kind of focused on access to medications, but access in a financially responsible way. And I said, that's really interesting. I'm interested in business. I'm interested in pharmacy. Why not combine the two and go down a route that kind of explores both? So it's kind of funny. I still remember my pharmacy interview, and they always ask the question, so why pharmacy? What makes you interested in that? And I was the one that was like, yeah, I want to do managed care. And I remember the person looked at me like, interesting. And I never looked back after that. Once I started in pharmacy school, I joined AMCP, just like you two are in. Did the whole AMCP internship. I did an internship with Aetna, and then I participated in the P&T competition multiple times. I was really heavily involved at conferences and with the local chapter. And after that, I did a managed care residency at a small PBM in Madison, Wisconsin. And I think, like I said, everything that I've done in pharmacy school has kind of just led me through managed care through some way. And now I'm with Express Scripts, well, Cigna Express Scripts now, but as a senior clinical consultant.
Okay, that sounds like a great journey. Okay, so I'm gonna let Alexa handle the rest of our questions.
Okay. Now you said, actually, can you go more into depth how you completed your postgraduate or your postgraduate work? I believe you said.
Yeah. So I completed a postgraduate year one managed care residency. It was with Navitus Health Solutions. So again, they're a small PBM, very similar to Express Scripts. Well, similar in the sense that they're a PBM, but otherwise they're very different. But they're based out of Madison, Wisconsin. So I was living in Wisconsin for a couple of years, and I would say that opportunity is really I don't want to call it a stepping stone, but it really is kind of, the path that led me to where I am right now. It was a residency focused on managed care. It was focused on the PBM space. I learned a ton from being in a very small company where, just to give you a little bit, just to give everyone, a little bit of a reference point. Navitus, at the time I was there, they had 5 million members that they were servicing. The company I'm with now, with all of their mergers and, getting acquired and all of that, they're looking at around 130 million members. So just think about the teams that need to manage 5 million versus the team that needs to manage 130 million. Express Scripts has massive teams. There's people that I don't even know exist in Express Scripts. Whereas at Navitus, I pretty much knew every single pharmacy person or pharmacy associated person working there. And they were a very small, very tight group. Everyone worked together. Every function was interrelated in a way, and people collaborated in ways that you're not going to see in a large company. So that's where I did my learning. And then I took the experiences I would say I gained and the skills that I really was able to develop through that small company. And I took that to a large company where fortunately for me, I've been pretty successful.
And what advice would you give to students who want to go into your field?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it's going to be just it's interest, and what I would recommend is the earlier you can start exploring, the better. If you're a P4 and you've already selected your rotations and you've got what you got, you're going to be in a different position than somebody who's incoming like you, Alexa. You're a first-year student. You're not tied down to anything right now. Even if you think you are not tied down. And you just have so much more opportunity to explore. Now, even if you're a P4 student and you've chosen your rotations and you're stuck with what you got, that doesn't mean it's game over for you. So the advice I would give changes depending on where you are in your pharmacy school and in your education right now. And overall, what I would say is the earlier you can get interested, the better. And interest doesn't mean you're going to go out and do a managed care internship, or you're going to go out and network with all these managed care pharmacists and know what they do and really be prepared when you start interviewing. That's not what it's about. Interest is really just go out, explore, learn about things that you have no experience with. And I would say the earlier you start figuring out what you don't want to do, the better off you're going to be positioned as a second year, third year, fourth year student, because you're going to be able to focus your attention on the things that you don't know versus trying to figure out things that trying to figure out things for the limited scope that you already do know. So what I mean by that is, and I'll give this an example as kind of what I thought when I was a first year student. There were all of these classmates of mine. They were getting internships left and right. A lot of them ended up being University of Illinois interns. I think they were called externs. I think they're still called externs. Super cool position, by the way. If you were to land one of those, great resume builder, great thing to put on your CV, great experience overall. But you're kind of locked into 4 years of doing that. Whereas somebody who isn't locked into doing that can go explore a big pharma internship. They can explore a managed care internship. They can volunteer with much more flexibility than someone that is tied down into a work schedule and they have to do that work every day or every weekend. You can participate in extracurriculars. So a lot of different things. I think for me, my advice is go with the route that gives you more freedom earlier on until you figure out what truly interests you and what truly makes you excited. Because what you want to do is in the future, you want to have a job and you want to have a position that excites you and motivates you to keep climbing. It doesn't have to be keep climbing into a higher role, but keep climbing so you continue to learn. Right now, you guys are all in school. You're all learning. Every day is exciting. When you get a job like me, every day you're kind of doing the same thing. Things start to get boring real fast, and you want to continue to learn. So what can you do to continue learning even after you get into your role? The answer to that is to start now. Start now and set a foundation for yourself to learn and keep learning, so that you're doing different things and you understand that there's different things out there that you can do. So that's a long-winded answer, but that's my suggestion. It's a tough question. Everybody's going to have a different route. I think you will hear that many times throughout your pharmacy school experience. You're all going to have a different pathway, but the more you have earlier on, two things. The first is, it is always very, very useful to know what you don't want to do, because you can wipe those out, you can push those away, and you don't have to put any time or resources to it. The second thing is, just the more you know, the more you're going to be able to pursue in the future and the more options you're going to have. So that's my advice. Have as many options early on, start knocking them off, but have those options available.
Thank you. I think your camera went away, but those are very good advice. I would really listen to you as I progress throughout pharmacy school.
Yeah, listen to as many people as you can. Like, honestly, I'm one voice, I'm one opinion. I try to give realistic advice and realistic and set realistic expectations based on everyone I talk to. I highly encourage everyone. You got to find someone out there that you can identify with, that you're close with. Either they're in a role that you aspire to be in, either they have an approach that you really identify with. But find somebody out there that really kind of gets you excited to kind of pursue something, and that can be one of your mentors. But find multiple people that are like that, and you'll find that the more mentors you have that you're really, really close with, just the opportunities that are going to be available to you really just kind of exponentially grow.
Throughout your journey in pharmacy school, did you have a mentor that you looked up to?
So many. And here's the thing, not all of them were pharmacists. So those mentors can come from any part of your life. I used to do martial arts. Well, I still do. I wouldn't say I stopped doing martial arts. I used to do martial arts, and the boss that I had at the time, the lead instructors, he's one of my closest friends and one of my closest mentors. Within pharmacy school, obviously, I've had numerous amount of mentors, both associated with the college and then people I've met just being affiliated with AMCP, or when I've gone to other conferences, or when I've been introduced to someone through somebody else. You're going to have multiple mentors throughout time. But what I would say is look for mentors everywhere. Don't think that you can only find mentors at UIC or only mentors that are pharmacists. You can find mentors anywhere. You can find mentors that are doctors. You can find mentors that are public health officials. So.
Great. Okay, so we actually finished asking the questions that we had for you. I just want to say thank you to Alexa for helping me with this alumni spotlight. Thank you to Dr. or Albert for coming, joining us, and giving us tips and advice, as well as sharing his experience. And then thanks to everyone, our chapter, for tuning in to our second alumni spotlight. If you have any questions, please reach out to me or Albert. I'm sure he would love to answer any of your questions that you have. So,
Of course.
thank you.
I love helping out. So anytime any of you need anything, feel free, send me an email. Let me know. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. So